Hey, I'm Hagar, and I'm so glad that you're here. Welcome to Mama Mandala, where magic is somatic, and welcome to another little session of Embodied Bhagavad Gita, just playing with teachings and pulling them out of this text in an interpretive dance kind of a way. This text that's written in India, a part of the Mahabharata that it was written and compiled really between 400 BCE and 400 CE. So the 800 years of compiling these stories and weaving them together, taking them into complex forest and networks of relationships. And the Bhagavad Gita is considered to be one of the most important texts in the yoga tradition, because every yoga tradition that came after it has spent time working with it and commentating on it and making it their own. Isn't that kind of cool? So we can do that too. We can receive the teachings of it with great respect for where it came from, the land of India, and think about the ways that it can offer helpful contemplations and possibly helpful tools for us in our lives in the modern world in this day and age. So the text is taking place in the middle, in the space between two armies. So it takes us into one of those places that the yoga tradition really loves to visit and loves to tell us to live in, which is the middle, the space between. Now, we can spend hours and days and months and years talking and practicing and playing with the concept of the middle, the midline, the Madhya in Sanskrit. There are texts like the Vijnana Bhairava that invite us into the cultivation of that Madhya state, that midline state. And what happens is that Arjuna, who is a powerful warrior, tells his friend the charioteer Krishna, who happens to also be the embodiment of God, who sits with him right there. He tells him, take me to the space between the armies, because he's freaking out. He's realizing that he's about to go to war and he wants to see who he's fighting. And he realizes that he's going to fight people that he knows. He is going to war. The people on the other side are people that he has known his whole life, people that he's gone to school with, that he worked with. You know, it is old friends and his doctors and his, right? It's like people that he's known his whole life. And he's freaking out. He doesn't want to fight, right? He kind of drops his weapon and he's having a big meltdown. And the whole text is about this meltdown and how Krishna is teaching him, pulling him, talking to him out of his meltdown. Now, what's so beautiful about this is that it is in the space of crisis that we are brought in this text, and maybe in our lives, and maybe in how what we're dealing with in the world in this day and age. It's an invitation to move into a place where we are creating space to pause, so that the rushing into the next thing is being slowed down, so that a discussion and a contemplation and a cooking and a churning of ourselves in the situation can take place, right? We live in a very fast era where everything changes really quickly and we're all always in a hurry. Maybe not all, but a lot of us in the modern world are in a hurry constantly to get from one thing to the next. I know that for sure. I live in a big city. I live in LA. I'm always in traffic. I'm always rushing. I'm always late to pick up my kids. Not always late to pick up my kids, but always having that feeling, right? Rushing. It's hard. I gotta get somewhere. So the way that the text takes us into the space between invites us to pause. And what's really beautiful about the bigger text, the Mahabharata, that the Bhagavad Gita is pulled out of, is that there's a story of how Ganapati, the Indian deity with an elephant head, who is the embodiment of wisdom, and there's a lot to say, and we can play with him another time. But he is the one, according to the mythology, who wrote the text of Mahabharata, who wrote it down, and he writes it down with his tusk that he breaks in order to be able to write the story. So we're always telling our story by breaking ourselves, right? We tell the story of who we are by breaking ourselves, by the way that also life is always in the process of shattering, and the shattering itself is a coalescing. And it's another midline, right? Well, when we're facing a paradox, we're facing a midline. Where we're facing a decision to make and we have to choose between one thing and another, it's a space between, it's a liminal space, right? It's Hekate from the Greek mythology. It's her realm. It's the realm of the crossroad. Where do I turn now? And this is exactly what Arjuna and Krishna are going, that's the role that they're going to take. They're actually, I learned this from my philosophy and mythology teacher, Douglas Brooks, scholar Douglas Brooks, who you can look up. Krishna and Arjuna take the role of the priest. They create a relationship with the sacred in a moment of crisis. And the role of the priest is to keep things going, to keep the mantras chanted, to keep things going, to figure out what the next step is. But when we're facing a situation that we have to keep things going, which is every day, all the time, we're also brought into the importance of pausing. And it's both, right? Here's the paradox again. Pause so that you can move forward. Pause so that you can consider where to turn, what the next step is. And Ganesha, as he writes the story, he only agrees to write the story if the story is told to him with no breaks. But then the sage that tells the story, he needs to breathe, he needs to take a moment, he needs to take a break, he needs to pause. So he puts in the language these knots, these rule-breaking moments called in Sanskrit granthas, so that he can have time, because his condition is that Ganesha can keep writing it without a pause if he understands everything. So he puts these knots so that Ganesha has to pause and think and consider, what was the meaning of that? What was this twisted knot in my life? How do I move forward from this? Isn't that cool? So the text is filled with granthas, with knots, with errors, with mistakes, so that a pause can take place. And this is a powerful invitation in our lives, to take every moment that we remember into the weaving together of past and future, pulling from what we're seeing of where we're going into the past so that we can learn from what happened before, and then allow that to bring us into the presence of the present moment. And the space between the armies is the embodiment of a stressed out crisis on the verge of catastrophe, kind of like we are right now with the environment, right? On the verge of catastrophe. And we can pause. Can we? Pause and listen and contemplate and gather, so that we can sit with and be with in that space between the space between war and pre-war, the space between this moment and the next, and contemplate what can be done. And one more thought about the center before we get moving a little bit is that the majority of the yoga tradition, the majority of spiritual teachings take us into the center as a place that is inside of us, and that's the center of the universe. And that's beautiful, because it allows us to pause within ourselves as this seat of wisdom and to really learn to listen to ourselves. But I think that it is missing the power and the importance of the space between us and the rest of the world. It gives it to us But then it doesn't necessarily take us into relationships. So actually in the Vijnana Bhairava, there's a practice of breathing into the space inside of us and then breathing out into the 12 fingers from our nostrils, right? 12 fingers from our nostrils is kind of where our personal space ends and the rest of the world begins. And so can we touch both? Can we let the midline be what's inside of us, but also what's between us and the rest of the world? And can we let the pauses happen in both places? So it's internal and relational. So go ahead and take a moment. Place your left hand over your heart and your right hand over your belly. Stand up tall in Tadasana, in mountain pose, feet rooted into the earth. Allow your eyes to be soft. They can close if that feels good. You can keep them open if that feels better. And invite a slower breath in and feel the space inside of you, in your own middle, in your own center, in your own heart. In Sanskrit, that space is called hrid. And as you exhale, slowly feel your breath touching the rest of the world. It's not just yours. Feel it meeting 12 fingers from your nostrils, the environment. And from there, breathe into the hrid. And from your own center, slowly breathe out to the Dvadashanta is the name of the 12 fingers space, 12 fingers distance from your nostrils. And from there, breathe in again, slowly deep into hrid. We are co-mingled with the world. Exhale, slowly breathe out. We are always in relationship with more than ourselves. Release your arms and inhale. Reach your arms up. And exhale, slowly join your hands and lower them to the front of your heart. And you can bring a tone to the back of the throat. Start to breathe Ujjayi Pranayama, triumphant breath. Inhale, reach up. Make this relationship with the breath one of both listening and following and also engaging and directing. Exhale, bring your hands to your heart. You are both Arjuna and Krishna. You are the villains in the story. You are the place, the space between. Inhale, reach up. You are every part of the myth. Exhale, bring your hands. How is this touching you all the way to your heart? Release your arms and open them to the sides as you inhale, and open your eyes if they were closed. And exhale, bend your knees and cross your right your right wrist over your left, and bring your forearms to your thighs and bring your hands to the inside of your knees. Now I can feel that my feet are a little too close for this, so I'm going to take my feet a little bit wider. Push your hands and your knees into each other, and you're creating a midline right there, a space between, a space within, and you're both pushing out and in. You are interacting with what's inside of you, pulling into it, seeing, breathing, feeling, noticing, reflecting, and also then bringing yourself to the world, but it's with a consideration of what's outside as well. So there's that pause, there's that moment to allow things to unfold, to settle, to be thought about, to be contemplated. Inhale and come up to open the arms out to the sides. And with an exhalation, again, bend your knees and cross your left wrist over your right and bring forearms to your thighs and your hands to your knees to the inside. And with your hands, push your knees out. With your knees, draw into the hands and breathe to the hrid, to the space within, to the midline inside of you, and out to Dvadashanta, to where you meet the world. And now it's nice to also remember that, yes, we have the boundary of our skin, and we are who we are, the person that we are, and we are an individual in the world, an individual within a collective, but also we are a collection of genetic code and bacteria that lives inside of us. We have more more cells in our bodies, more in our bodies that is in our bodies, that is in human cells. Inhale with your arms out to the sides again. And with an exhalation, slowly fold forward, reach your chest forward and your hips back as you fold in, fingertips to the floor. I'm having one of those days where speaking is a funny thing. Inhale, look forward, send your chest forward, halfway up. Bring weight to the balls of your feet. Pause, and then exhale and fold back in. What if we allowed ourselves to slow down, to pause, to listen? Inhale and look forward. What if everybody else around us did that too? Exhale slowly and fold back in. One more time, inhale. Stretch your chest forward, look forward, hips back. Exhale, slowly fold back in. Bend your knees, separate your feet a little bit wider. Move your hips a little bit side to side. So this invitation into the midline, into the pause, is simultaneously an opportunity to be a little bit more fluid too. As the hips move side to side, bring your torso more to the inside of your legs. So the way into the middle isn't always in a straight, direct line, maybe never, maybe hardly ever. Bring your hips towards the floor, bring your arms on the inside of your legs and push the arms into the legs as your legs squeeze into the arms. Do you feel that midline again? And it's both ways, right? It's inwardly and outwardly. It's into ourselves and out into the world. Hands joined together, slow breath in. You can always put a block underneath your hips to support you. Slow breath out. And then bring your hips all the way down to the floor and lie on your back. What? Yes. Bend your knees and flex your feet and put your hands this time outside of your knees and push your knees out into your hands. So that creates, for me, I don't know about you, but like a nice release in the lower back, this action, this place. I can feel my ankles really wanting to move around, so I'm circling them. Listen to your body, right? The pause, the ability to take a space between one thing and another, which is every moment, all the time, is the invitation to listen to what is needed, to what we need, and to what is needed of us. Now, slide your hands up, it's down but up, towards your feet, and hold the outer edges of your feet. Bring your arms to the inside of your legs, and with your legs, again, draw into your arms, and with your arms, push into your legs, and breathe slowly. And keep the breath moving between the hrid within you, the heart, and the Dvadashanta, the space that surrounds you and creates a boundary between you and the world. But the boundary is permeable because it's where you meet the world. It's where the world comes into you. This is where the breath comes from to feed and nourish your body with oxygen. That's where you bring carbon dioxide out of your body to feed the plant world. Your feet, you can pull them down with your hands, and with your hands push up into the feet, and that's another midline. Bring your knees to center. Move a little side to side if you need to, if that feels good. A little circling. It's gentle, soft, nothing big. And then something big happens. Roll on your spine a little bit back and forth if that feels okay. If it doesn't feel okay for you, don't do that. Support yourself in whatever way that you need. We're going to come back into Malasana, into a squat. And again, put a block underneath your hips if you need to. Hands together in front of your heart. Doesn't this pose feel different now than it did when we did it before we came all the way down? It is for me, at least. Stretch your left arm to the side, your your left leg is still on the outside of your left arm, and reach your right arm up to the sky. And with your arm, push out into the leg as your chest opens up to the right. Slow breath in. Fingertips of your left hand are on the floor. Slow breath out. And you're meeting the floor. You're meeting the ground. You're meeting the earth with your fingertips. How are you showing up to that midline, to that meeting? Inhale back to center. Right arm on the inside of your right leg. Exhale. Left arm up to the sky as your right fingertips come to the floor. Push the fingertips down and receive the earth. And what is needed of you in this relationship? So it's not an exchange, this reciprocity in our relationship with our environment, but it has to work both ways. Not as an exchange necessarily. It's not so linear. Right leg and right arm push into each other as your chest opens up to the left. Inhale back to center. And exhale, fold forward over your legs. Parallel your feet as you fold back in. Make the balls of your feet as heavy as your heels, and energetically pull your heels back as you fold in. Ground deeply through the legs and rise up slowly. Inhale. You can bend your knees on your way up. Exhale, slowly bring your hands to your heart. And then take a wide-legged stance. Turn your right toes out and your left toes parallel to the back edge of your mat, if you have a mat. Deep breath in with your arms out to the sides. And with an exhalation, bring your right forearm to your right thigh. I'm not mirroring you, so sorry. Stretch your left arm over your head and turn your chest up to the sky. And then let's create that midline inside of us, this relationship of gathering inwardly so that things can also open up. So draw the front of your hip bones towards each other. So you're creating a center. The sides of the ribs towards each other into the center. And then your chest opens up, and then root down into the left foot as you extend through your left arm. And if this feels okay for you with all this gathering and opening, slide your right arm in the inside of your right leg, fingertips of your right hand to the floor, and the inside of your right foot. You can keep your forearm on your thigh if that feels better. I'm going to spend another couple of breaths here. Press down into the right foot. And breathe slowly as you keep turning the front of the hip bones towards each other, the sides of the ribs into the center, and chest opens up. Ground through the legs and come up on an inhale, and then turn your right toes in and your left toes out. Arms out to the sides, deep breath in. Exhale, left forearm to left arm, left thigh, right arm up and over your head, and breathe slowly here. As you root down into both of your feet and extend long through your arm, your right arm. Gather the energies like an inhalation, almost like you're gathering the information, you're gathering the things that you've learned from more than yourself, right? The front of the hip bone, ASS is moving towards each other, the sides of the ribs. We're a collection of memories and of unconscious, of things buried in the unconscious, right? In the spaces where we don't even know why we do what we do. And more is hidden than what is seen, no matter how hard we work on ourselves and how self-reflective we are. Slowly slide, if that's okay for you, your left arm on the inside of your left leg and left fingertips to the inside of your left foot, and extend the right arm. And so we pause so that our actions and reactions are, as we know, if we know that more is in the unconscious and more is unseen, keep drawing in and breathing as you extend out. Then we can pause a little bit more and then forgive ourselves when we don't. Apologize to others when we don't, but pause before some of the things that we say and some of the things that we do. Make more space between feeling and an action. Inhale, come up. and know that we're always also in a process, right? Left toes turn in, deep inhalation, open the arms out to the sides, and with an exhalation, fold forward. Hips back, chest forward to fold back in. Breathe slowly. If your head touches the floor, you can allow it. Let it even gently press into the earth if that feels good. And if you're in a place where the flexibility is a challenge and your head is not touching the floor, it's totally fine. You can do this with your knees bent. You can do this holding onto blocks underneath you. If you don't have blocks, you can use a stool. You can use a couch or a chair. Support yourself as needed. Take as many pauses as you need to in order to take care of yourself. Slowly heel toe your feet towards each other, and again turn your toes out a little bit, move your hips and your torso a little side to side. Bring your hips towards the earth, your arms on the inside of your legs, the legs draw in, arms push out, hands together in Anjali Mudra in front of your heart. In the gesture of the heart's deepest offering, and the offering is made to yourself and to the world, it's always a weaving. It's always both. It's not, right? But perhaps we want to make it. Bring your hips down to the floor. Take a comfortable seated position. Move the hips a little bit side to side, and let's find a space between the breaths. Hands are on your knees or on your thighs. You can sit up on a blanket if you need to. Let your eyes soften or close inwardly. You can do the first couple of rounds of finding the Madhya, the space between the breaths with Ujjayi, and then release it. Feel the breath moving in and touching the Hrid, the heart space, the center of the universe within you. And exhale slowly to the Dvadashanta and let the breath, the exhalation, touch 12 fingers around you, where you and the world meet, and let this convergence move inwardly to touch the heart. Pause at the heart, let it receive, and then offer it back as you exhale, and the breath touches the world. Notice what's in the midline for you, within and around. And we can perhaps release some of the expectation to have a certain kind of experience in that Madhya, in that midline space. And allow ourselves to be receptive and notice what we're actually experiencing. And from the awareness and the presence with our experience, from the pause that allows the attentiveness, what is the next step? How do we move forward? And if you'd like, you can spend some more time here, and if you have more time after that, you can journal a little bit about what has come up for you. And I'm going to leave you here in your spaciousness with so much gratitude for joining me. And please like this video if you liked it and subscribe to our channel. Thank you so much. Namaste.